Rutledge Jr. running for the Republican nomination. I know a lot of my posts can be very, explosive and really thought-provoking. And honestly, that's what I try to bring to this campaign, one way or the other. We got too much important stuff going on with too many consequences on the line. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is how Virginia failed a stress test. And realistically, this is not only just a test, but this is what Virginia could look like, and even worse, if a worse catastrophe could even happen. And this is like Virginia having a flood and being underwater and not prepared. And what we found out for over a decade under Democratic leadership, that based off of how this whole COVID stuff was handled and more, realistically, we was the first to bottom out. Meaning, if this was a worse catastrophe than what it is right now, then Virginia would be completely underwater and pretty much no chance of coming back. And we would be the first state to go. And that's why we have to change up leadership. Let's be honest, whether it was unemployment claims or response or being prepared or reviewing data, Virginia was always constantly coming in last. We cannot afford that in a future that is uncertain, and realistically, even though it is as uncertain, we should be better prepared than this. And we can see from 10 years of Democratic leadership and more, which of course is going to be a little bit more extended if we make the wrong decision in 2021. We cannot ever accept being the first to go if something was to happen. And realistically, this is that something. Right now, we are experiencing cataclysmic disaster throughout the state. And it's all self-inflicted because of Governor Northam. That's why you're seeing evictions going out of control. You're seeing businesses 800 plus a week closing, never coming back. And we also seeing jobs lost that people are uncertain what they are going to do. Now, we can stick to the same old boat and the same old way of doing business, and we can see this get worse and worse. And over time, you don't have to worry about Virginia because Virginia won't be here. And we have to start understanding why COVID became a stress test to Virginia and why we failed it so badly. And it's easy enough to say it starts at the top of the top with the career politicians and their policies. Realistically, we wouldn't have even known about this unless something like this was to happen with COVID, or even with a flood where they decided not to invest in, handling the flooding problems, and when something went out of control, out of their hands, we would have been, like I said, underwater. And with stress tests, any good company knows you want to see what your company looks like if the worst case scenario happens, and how much time do you have to change up things before your company is no longer existing. A company is no different than Virginia and how it runs business. But the fact of the matter is, companies may do the stress test, but Virginia doesn't have a habit of doing the stress test because they don't want coverage on the fact of Virginia has been ran so badly to the point it's like this. But the fact is, if you work for a company or work for a business, you know what a stress test means. It means put all of the worst together and see how your company responds. And you'd rather do it as practice than to actually see it happen in real time where you don't have no plan to handle it. That's how people come up with plans, disaster plans, or whatever you may be, because they run these type of stress tests so they can prevent the worst case scenario. Virginia is the worst case scenario. We are last in everything. That means if a real disaster happened, this wasn't a hoax, this would be 10 times worse. And given a lot of family situations as well as businesses closing down and more, Do you really want to continue to go with those who cover up the mess and don't have these type of stress tests so they can be prepared for something like this? Or would you rather go with a candidate that understands what a stress test is and how much we now need to be ready to make sure we don't have this happen again? And it's called new leadership. And that's exactly what I bring into this race. I bring in new ways of handling disputes. Yes, I do. And I bring in no longer business as usual. Because no matter how you see it, whether it's Democrat or Republican up there in Richmond, they all failed the stress test. The only thing they could do is either write up mean letters or delay certain problems while businesses close down and families lose everything based off unconstitutional mandates and orders and restrictions, which has cost Virginia not only financially, mentally, as well as their whole life savings. And I don't plan on making that happen or making that a continuous practice. I plan on shutting down not only the virus, but shutting down the cancer up there in Richmond, because this stress test shows clearly that Virginia needs new leadership that is ready to understand exactly what I'm saying, that we need to be better prepared for things like this. If not, trust me, I'm sorry, New York and the rest of the places ain't going to be the first to go or the first to basically have chaos that is out of control and outside of anybody being able to do anything for us. The fact is, Virginia must learn how to do it for themselves, fix these problems, and make sure that these problems don't happen again, and we have a plan that we can rely on instead of finding out we are so far in debt, so far under the water that everybody drowns. That's why I'm running for Virginia governor, because I understand that. I understand your families and what they're going through, because I'm going through the same thing along with you. I ain't privileged, I ain't special. I just consider myself another Virginian, just like each and every one of you. But I had the heart and soul not to be politically correct. I had the heart and soul to be politically incorrect, because Virginia comes first, not outsiders or those outside our country. And that's exactly why I plan on leading Virginia and its families back to prosperity, making sure our businesses roar back, and putting the stress test to them politicians, not to you, the American people. My name is Merle Rutledge, and I am running for 2021 Virginia Governor for the Republican nomination. God bless you, and God bless America.